Indiana's original.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hoosier Garage. We're going to continue going on with this dash here. Of course, we got it in. Hopefully you saw that video from last week. We got it installed, we got some of the accessories in it. I went ahead and put the instrument cluster in it just to get it out of the way, keep it from getting scratched up or anything. But we're going to have to pop that back out so we can do the wiring harness in it. And I'll show you that. It's actually very simple. It looks like it's in much better shape than the one that goes to the engine. Of course, it really should be. Nobody's really messed with it. There's not any cuts or splices in it. And it's just dirty. And these early wiring harnesses, not a lot to them. So, like I said, you get to see that. Another cool thing is, here's the original for the steering column, the seal for the box. And it's all, you know, rotted and everything. Well, we got a new one. This is the one I talked about. You can get one for about $8. eBay. Just as easy. So I got it through there. It'll mesh up with the old clamp. So we can rebuild that, and we'll try to put the steering column in. Like I said, get the wiring in, and then we'll just go from there and see what else we can do. We might just go different directions here. I still want to get the timing chain cover, all that craziness on the front of the engine, and do it right, because we had that issue with that. Some of you know about that, and just go from there and see what we can do. So thanks for joining us. Alright, so here is our dash wiring harness, and as you can see, there's not a whole lot to it, just a couple branches. Here's our fuse box. It's only got 6 fuses in it. We're going to clean all the terminals up, and we'll replace the fuses if need be, and we might just do it just for aesthetic. Clean all this stuff up, and here's your bulkhead that goes out to the engine bay, and we'll try to clean that up best we can. This is going to your steering column wiring right here, and of course all your turn signals and your dimmer switch, which I think is still worked when I checked. Of course, this is the dreaded pin assembly that goes to the back of the dash, and then our ammeter wires. Now these, usually when you see these on a Chrysler product, the orange usually means lighting. If you pull your light switch on, this will activate that. So it's just a little terminal. You can take these plugs similar to these and wire them in, and you can run extra lights on them. Now this right here, I believe this is a hot, constant hot, and I say that because I believe this is for the cigarette lighter, and on a lot of these they was constant 12 volt hot. So if you need a source for constant 12, you can make one of them plugs up and put it in here and run a switch on it, and then you'll always have 12 volt. Things like your radio. Now I'm actually not sure about the radio situation on here. I'll have to look around and figure that out. It might have to run off of one of these with a switch, or the actual switch on the radio. But we'll get to that when the time comes. But right now we're just going to clean all this up. And you got this little pigtail here, which I think this is what goes to the heater box. That probably turns the fan on. It plugs in there. So we'll just get it all cleaned up, take some care with that, and then we'll snake it up inside of there and get it all connected, and probably reattach the instrument cluster and have that in there properly. Alrighty, we're doing some cleanup work like we said, and we got most of the harness cleaned up, and we're just addressing the issues with the fuse box. And there's really no heavy issues, I wouldn't say, but one thing I noticed, if we look on the front here, see where we have a cavity that's empty right here, it says external EXT LPS. It's lamps, external lamps, because right here you got your instrument lamps and your external lamps. Okay, so here's the I believe the feed right here in the back. It's on this rail, and I pulled this one out that the cavity is, and it's right here, and you can tell it's very corroded right here where the connection from the copper wire is to the connector. So I am kind of mulling over it right now. I think I will replace this, and I happen to have another spare fuse box in my part stash, and the terminals are the same. That's a 73 fuse box for an A body, and the terminals are the same. This one is in much cleaner shape, so I think that we might, and it's a red wire, I might as well just keep it the same there, and I will splice it in place of this one. I might even just cut it right here, and then it'll make the wire just a touch longer. That way we can get a splice on there and we can fit it back in, and it'll go right into that original cavity. So we're going to deal with that. Now on the front, I pulled the fuses out, and based on what I know about this van, they have been in there solid for 15 years, so they was a little stuck in there, so there's a touch of corrosion that we're going to have to deal with. And there we go. Okay. So I think if I can pop some of these out just like I did the other one, clean up any of this for what it does have. You know, this is probably the worst one. It's the only one that's got rust on it. The rest of them look like they're actually just dirty. So we'll clean them up. And if you ever try to get these out, if you look, let me lay this down if I can point at it a little better. Right here is the little tangs. See that? And that is what clips. You can see how it's H-shaped. We'll see how the one through the middle is a little wider. Right over here about where my finger is. That's where they clip in. And you basically just have to squeeze them together. And then you can take a small screwdriver, and the only one that I have that's really good for this, I have a small snap-on screwdriver, and you can either stick it in here from the back and kind of pry it a little bit, and then when you get some movement on it, you can come to the front and you can pretty much do the same thing, just go in through here, and then you would do that. Okay, they're a little bit of a hassle because it is in plastic, and try not to tear up the plastic box, otherwise it'll have a hard time clipping back through. But if you do it that way, it should come out alright. Now the top ones, if you ever have to get the top ones out, you have to take them out collectively. So this is on a 3 rail right here, and this one's on a 2 rail, so you'll have to remove it accordingly. Now this one here doesn't have anything connected to it. It's part of the accessory package, so I'm not sure what we'll do there. What I might do, I have another one of these, and it's got a double prong connector. You put multiple spade female ends on them, and you can put it in. So I might replace that one too, and just try to have a nice clean fuse box that way. Okay, so I've been using our method with the small screwdriver to pull a few of these out, and they're easier to clean that way. That way, if they're in there in the block and you're trying to clean it like with some, I got some 220 sandpaper, and kind of roll it up, it's hard to get it inside there, at least to where you're going to have contact with your fuse, which, you know, your fuse sits inside of this part of it. The entry isn't as critical because there won't be the connection there. So if you can get them out, you can roll up some sandpaper, get rid of a little bit, I got a little bit too much there. Make it just the right size. You get fitted inside of there and just, you know, work it back and forth. And try to put some pressure on this side, put some pressure on that side, and then it'll work it around evenly. and they probably make some bits that you can use that are actually probably perfect for this, but this is what we have available, and it might be all you have, so this is what I would recommend doing. And you can even spin it around in there like that, and just get a nice abrasion going and take off any of the rust. And now if you look inside there, it's hard to see with the camera, but I actually can see the bare metal, nice clean metal there. So that'll give us a nice connection, and it'll help eliminate things like dash lights that fade. Now there's other aspects that'll allow that, like a headlight switch being kind of touchy, but this could eliminate at least the connection part of the fuse box and the wiring that goes direct to it. So I'm gonna just take one at a time out, put it back in, and go to the next one. I have taken a picture of this in case something does happen, or let's say a couple of them pop out and I don't know where they go. So just take you a picture of the back of the fuse box, the front of the fuse box, and that way if you have a little accident or you pull out too many, get ahead of yourself, you can see exactly where what color went and what's thickness and all that, and you can just reposition it and you'll be fine. So that's what I would suggest. Okay, so I'm about ready to complete this bottom row of terminals. We've taken all of them out and we've cleaned the contact point for the fuse. I've also cleaned up the back side where you can see the copper wiring coming out of the insulation, and you can just take that, and I sprayed a little electric cleaner, or you can use carb cleaner, and just take a little, I have a little nylon scrub brush, you can clean that out real good, just give it a good scrubbing. And then I took some sandpaper to the back of the terminal here to help get some of that corrosion off. And then we did our little kind of a spiral sandpaper and spun it around in there, and you can get it looking really sharp in there. And I wish this camera would pick it up, but it looks really fresh inside of there. Now, I should mention, if you want to put these back in and have them come in as tight as they can, the little tangs that I referred to, you could take your screwdriver and just carefully kind of fold them back out. I know I'm just kind of showing you where to go, and just do that just a little bit on each side so you get these little wings, okay? And then when you go to put it back in there, it should click in. Click, yep, so like that. So this bottom row is ready to go. Alright, now we're going to do a little bit more complex. I'm going to go ahead and pop these top ones out, but like I said, they're on like gangs. You got a gang of 3 and a gang of 2, and then you got one down here by itself. Okay, so now if you notice here on this one here, that one's a little loose. That's just part of it. I spread them wings out, and that's just kind of the way they are. You'll get that on a few of them, but the main thing is it's making a connection. Once you put the fuse in there, it's not so much making any kind of a ground, because this is plastic, so it just makes it a nicer install if they can click in and be solid. Okay, so now I just took out one of the gangs. It's the 3 gang. I took it out, and there you have it. Now be careful when you take these out, because they work on the same principle. You unload the tangs on them, but you got to do a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, and then a little bit of that one. And then you can kind of push that down some, and it'll release or disengage the tangs from one side. But then you got to remember, don't force that, because this will bend really easy. So you'll want to kind of progressively work through them a little at a time, and then they will pop out. Now this one had the large light blue connector going to the center, okay, but it popped off pretty easy. So now we can just take this by hand and clean it up as we were doing on all the other ones with the wire connected. So this makes it a little more convenient once you do get it out. And like I said, you're just doing you get your nice coiled up piece of 220, and it will polish out that contact really well. And that one's really no different. So we'll go through the 3 gang on this, Then we'll pull the two gang out, clean it just the same way. And I will suggest you can either take a soft wire brush or even the nylon brush with some cleaner on it, and you can go to the back side of this and just give it a little scrubbing. You can get aggressive with the nylon brush since it's so much softer, and the wire brush you can just be moderate with your force on it, and that'll clean off. And this one's in pretty good shape overall. And then just for I got some 400 grit, we can take it and kind of scuff these terminals up to get any corrosion off of them, which it's only touching the middle one, but you never know, later you might have to wire something in of your own, and you could use some of these. If not these exactly, then you might use them on one of the other connectors. So it's just a good practice to scuff them up and refresh them, get any corrosion off, any dust. And then you can just spray it down, cleaner, and there you have it. It's pretty much ready to go back in, and we'll reconnect it and we'll hit that 2 gang. Alright, so we've done the whole cleaning here. We did the 3 gang, and then the 2 gang, which is kind of in a tight spot behind her. I actually had to take this green wire loose off this terminal and then actually remove this one out of the cavity to get it out, and I cleaned it up just like we did the other one, and we put it back in, and that left me, there's this one terminal right back here. You can kind of see at the end of my fingernail right there. I cleaned that one up. That one's for your instrument cluster lights, and so I had to actually remove this bottom one again to get it out. If you take all of these out at once and you got record of it, that's fine. I just try to keep them in place, but we got that back in, and I'll give you a little story here. I had a 73 Duster. It was the purple one that I've talked about, and everything worked great on it electronically, except for the dash lights. They was actually non-existent. Couldn't get them to work. Replaced the headlight switch, did everything I thought I needed until I pulled this fuse box down, and it was similar to this one. It was actually identical to this one. It actually has an extra cavity in it, and I flipped it over, and one of these terminals for the instrument cluster, see how it has that rivet, which you can see them better here. I'm sorry. You can see the rivet there. Well, that rivet was almost completely rusted through, and when you pulled that piece out and looked at it from the inside, the cavity or the terminal itself, like what we've been cleaning, that little area for the contact point for the fuses, was very corroded. Had some rust in it. It even had some, like, it looked like aluminum oxide dust or galvanized dust. And so I took another one of these that I had and replaced it, and voila, the lights worked. They was very strong. They wasn't flickery or anything. So just keep this in mind if you're having problems with your dash lights or anything like that, and everything else has been kind of troubleshoot, and it seems like there's nothing left. Check your fuse box. Just make sure the terminals look clean. They don't have a bunch of corrosion on them, and hopefully that'll be your last resort for something like that. So we're cleaned up here. This should have a cover on it, which usually they're long gone due to other people, servicing, but it'd help keep the dust out. So we can either find another one, or I can even make one that'll click in here, because it goes in, there's a little finger tab for it there, and then you got one up here. And we do have this kind of a loom that will go in here around the wires, and then it clicks down into place. And that's what this one is for as well, in case you have extra wiring that runs out of the side. For instance, these here. So with that said, we're gonna button this up and then clean out whatever the rest of it. I just got it hanging on this here. Clean the bulkhead up a little bit, and then we should be ready to reinstall this back into the van. So, and I would say as far as cleaning all this out, disassembling it, it's probably taking about an hour and a half, and just taking my time with it, so I'll give you an idea. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take this back out, and we got a little solution we're going to attempt on this, the mounting points on this thing, because we can't put all the screws in. It's got 3 screws holding it. It needs to have 4. We need to make sure we secure that so we don't drop it or tear up anything. One of the nylon mounting points is gone on here, and it's not something you can buy at the store, at least now you can't. But I saw something that might work as a replacement. We'll take a look. Let me put this away. Okay, now these got painted when I went through everything here, but hopefully you can see it's these. They're nylon, and they're kind of that white color, and they got the little clips through, right? Well, there was one missing here, and I realized that this one isn't even in use. It's probably for something else that they had planned. So I went to O'Reilly's to see what they had, and I actually noticed these look like they might be very close, and they are in the little help, not the help section, but over in the fasteners and stuff. It says Kia nylon nuts. Now I have not tried this yet, so you're gonna follow along with me and see if it does. They aren't round on the face, but it doesn't really matter so much as they have kind of that situation there, and if it fits in here, then we might be in good shape. So let's see, and let's see if a screw goes in there. All right, it clicked in there good. That's a good sign. The screw hole looks like it's a little smaller, but it looks like it'll accept it. Now I'm sure if we have a problem with this, let's say with the screw size, we can take another one. Like say, okay, for instance, if it busts that in half over time and it drops out, well, we can take another one and just bore the hole out a little bit bigger and then run that same screw in there. But actually, I think that'll work. So if you have one of those type of, I wonder if I can pop one of the old ones out. I don't know. Okay, so here's one of the old ones, and obviously it's, you know, kind of old and should be that nylon freshness of white or yellow. And here are it says Kia. It's a Dorman product. It looks very close, and it just has a square head on it, and so that might work. So if you're doing one of these vans or one of the other vehicles that has that same style as that, then the number on it, and this is at O'Reilly's, 961-302D, and that's in D as in dog, and it's just under a Kia nylon nut. So who'd have thunk that Kia was good for something, right? And I wondered that a while back, and I kept mulling around about it, thinking, I wonder if that would work or if it would just be too much of a guess, and it looks like it works good there. So we'll keep these other nuts for future reference. Now, a couple things that I'm going to go over here, real simple. This is the bulkhead. This is what goes into the firewall, which exits into the engine bay. So any fumes you get, any holes or anything around this are liable to get in there. And here's the original gasket that was on there. You can see it's pretty old. It's very fatigued, and it's also split in half. And so we took the gasket material we used on the heater boxes a while back. It's a little bit thicker, so it might give us a little bit more trouble getting it to clip into the box shape on the firewall. These have to clip into place, and I'll show you that here in a second. But if you do manage to get it clipped down, then you have a very solid seal there. And we just used the old one as a template and used some X-Acto knives cut the new one out. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as you have a good perimeter around it. Kind of like that, and it'll sit on that outer flange surface. And so we'll have us a new gasket on there. So we'll get that on there. Another thing, I lied to you earlier again. Said there was no cuts in this wiring. Well, there was one here, and it was actually for good reason. This is a very heavy gauge hot wire here, and I believe it's the one that goes to the ammeter. It's probably the one that feeds out of here, and then it'll probably also go through the fuse box, that large one there. That's just speculation. But what had happened, and this is a common problem on the old ammeter type dashes, where you have this is basically a connection that goes from one side to the other through your ammeter gauge. That's what gives you your reading. Well, a lot of times they would get hot somewhere, and it would be right here, and this would be the most likely corroded spot, is here at the bulkhead where you would get, moisture. And if you see here, it has been blown out or burned out. And let's just say if that wasn't the case, and somebody ripped it out because they was trying to fix the exact same problem. So they had a splice right here, and the wire came out here, and I had to snip it when I got out because it ran completely through, and that's fine. Actually, in this case, an improvement would be to let it do that. So I put a new end on it just to make sure our corrosion was down. So I clipped it back, cleaned it, and then put a new splice on it. It's like a 10 gauge, I think. And then what we'll do when we get this in, we'll run our wire, basically a battery wire, from the engine bay side in through here to the inside of the van, and then we'll splice it back in on here. It's just the old connection here with that corrosion that would cause almost like a fusible link unto itself, but it would melt things. And I've seen them melt a lot worse than this, and some of you have probably seen the same, where they would just completely melt this and you'll have a fire. So that was a little bit of a probably a problem on those, and this is just a good way to just run it directly through. And if you have the splice, have it back here where it's inside the vehicle and not likely to get weathered, and just run completely out through here, because all the buildup over time and then the heat that travels through these type wires, basically running everything in the car or the vehicle, can cause you some issues. So just something we're going to cover, and we're going to do that after we get it all in the dash. Got our gasket on. We went ahead and put a little bit of super glue just around the edge on the plastic bulkhead, and then just laid this down on it and let it dry. So we're good to go there. I think we're good to go as far as putting it in. Now if you notice on the bulkhead, we have a rectangular hole, and it's got the little notch on the side. Well, that pretty much just tells you where it goes. And there's the little triangle shape, what makes the notch relevant. So we'll get that in the spot. And like I said, with that gasket being a bit thicker, a lot newer, it might give us a little trouble as far as clicking in there, but we'll give it a try. You hear them springs fighting us. Okay, we got it kind of lodged in there, it ain't all the way in, but let's just make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing here. Yeah, so we got one of them clicked in here, and this one's about to go, and then the two top ones, so we'll use a little bit of force. Set you up here. Top side on the right. There we go. So we got a nice fresh gasket in there. That one, these two, and that one. So it's ready to go there. So from here, we will probably have to fish some of this up through here It's just the way it is. Sometimes you might be better to go in this way or that way, so we'll just see what we can do. Okay, so we've got the dash harness in place. Pretty much everything hooked up except for, you know, stuff like the radio. We'll figure that out later. And, putting on the ammeter connections right now. Snugging them down. Like so. I went ahead and backpacked our white lithium grease into the speedometer cable. I don't know if it works or not. We'll find out. But, you know, head of the game if it does work. And we put some in here. So we'll go ahead and put our connector on. Now I added some of the electric grease on these just to make them easier to take off later if need be. So that has a keyway on it. So once you set the keyway in, it should all fall into place to the correct pin that it needs to go to. Sometimes it can be hard putting them on just as it is taking them off. Don't know why, but that's just the way it is, right? There we go. Straight in, don't go sideways or else you'll have your problem. Okay. This out. Hoping that the speedometer cable will clip on there like it's supposed to. There we go. Didn't hear it, but it went on. Slip this back in. Now we have our new retainer that we talked about, a new clip. That's good. Line this thing back up. There. It's kind of rough when you're leaning in and you got a little kink in your back. Oh gosh. It don't seem like much, but it is. At least while you're holding something forward like that. Get that one started. I'll have to find the other screw to put. We'll go ahead and put the old screw in the new clip here. Make sure it's back against there good. There. Anchor it, I'll find the other screw for it. Here we be. There we go. Snug it all down for now, in case we don't have to get back in it. You know, like I said, on that new clip, the Kia clip or whatever it is, there's a little smaller diameter hole. So if we bust that one by it just being in there, then we'll drill one of the other ones out and put it in, and then know what we need to do from that point on. There we go. And then once you put the steering column in, that'll anchor. It's kind of flapping around. put that in, it'll mount it up to the body good. So let's get to the steering column now. We've got the bracket here for it. This is the one that goes about yay so, and then this is the actual strap that holds it up to that. So let's get the rest of the steering column figured out. We might do the turn signal cam switch after it's in. We'll just see. We'll see what we got to do. Now we've been getting some other things ready. The steering column and getting the plates back on here with the gasket and all that situation. And then we put the turn signal cam in here. Even though it's the old one, if we have to replace it, it's not that hard to get to. We clean this up, put it back in. The little light was kind of a deal to get back in there behind that and get everything lined up. Screw that in. We'll go ahead and splice these back together. I might even make them to where you can quick disconnect them. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but we'll try something, and then I'll get that. And then the little connector, oh yeah, right here. Here's where we're connected into. This is what plugs back into the harness we put in earlier. So we'll have that ready. This is the steering coupler pot, and I went ahead and muriatic acid it because it was pretty rusty. I think it had gotten all the battery acid that had dripped down there and had gotten right on it. And actually, I'm pretty sure that's what it's, because if you look at the relation to where all this rotted out, it probably got right here, and it rotted pits into this side of it, but the other side looks good. So we have everything, put that back together, got some fresh grease, we'll repack it, and here's the little slides that go in there and the little rail. So we'll get that put back together, and then we'll slip it back in the van and bolt it in. And the steering box itself, sorry, I'm going to walk back over here again, has some slop in it. Some of you that are a little more familiar with the manual steering boxes, at least as far as the play on them, let me know if that's acceptable. If it is, I'll go ahead and just be done with it. If not, I might take the one out of the duster out back and see if we can use that one. It doesn't seem like it has any play in it. So if it is, then we'll decide what to do with that one later. Maybe get this one rebuilt and put it in the duster to swap them around. So we'll figure out something to do. But you just let me know on that. Okay, so we're getting ready to put all this back together. Here's our old seal. Here's our new one. So we'll get rid of the old one. And we want this flat side to be down. And you have to shoehorn it around all this. And it don't help when your fingers are sore, which mine are right now. You can get this on. I should have put this on first, but hey, I goofed. So it's on there. It'll fit on anyway. So we're going to take our clamp, maybe not so much a clamp, but put on there like that. With these pieces. We want the chamfered edges out so they'll be back against the corners. Okay, now you should be able to put the coupling on itself. a little bit of work. It'll go in there good. About like that. Now we want to be able to put our seal on here, our clamp, and then get our pin driven back in, keep it from slipping off. The pin should be able to go on about any rate. So that should be anchored on now. As far as this seal, so it fits down in there pretty good, and then you're just left with the clamp. Now the clamps are always tricky. Sometimes they have a wire one you can buy that goes around it, because these tend to pop off. Actually on the duster out back, this one's just jiggling around on there like that. So we're just opening up the tangs on it. And they have these little ledges, and you want them to clamp over top of those. If you can't fit it over top of it initially, then you need to probably open up your tangs a little bit more. So I got a couple of them that I'm going to flatten back out. Okay, so we're down around everything here. We'll just have to clamp it down onto the little clip. There's probably a tool out there that does this much better than anything like this would do. It's never easy on these, especially when they're in the car. There's something that happens. You go to clamp it, one side clamps, but it slips off, and you obviously don't want the whole thing to clamp like that. So we'll try it again. Make sure the gasket's down on there. These are always a pain, I think. Oh, it's good these sides a little shorter. See if they clamp down. So we'll just do a little bit there and work around to the other side and just do a little bit. See if we can just gradually work it down. These probably aren't the best design deals we've ever had, because they're so springy. They want them to get one side clamped down, and then you're dealing with the other side.
Indiana's original.